Hey there friends, it's Missy Whidden and I'm very excited to be the guest designer this month over at Altenew. And this is one of 2 layouts and video tutorials that I've created for this month over on the Altenew YouTube channel. They sent me this beautiful collection. It's called Our Family. Look at these florals on these papers. I was instantly just amazed at how beautiful the color scheme was and the detail of these beautiful watercolor flowers. So I knew I had to create a layout with flowers. They also sent me this stamp set. It's called Painted Rose, and it's got this really nice big rose layered stamps set on here that you can you stamp it 3 different times with each layer of the stamp, and you get different layers of the flower, and it works best if you use 3 different colors of ink. And so the ink I'm using here is also from Altenew, and it is called Northern Lights. It's a mini cube set. There's 4 different colors, and I just started playing around with this on some white cardstock. This is my first time playing around with one of these layered flowers, and I stamped the lightest color first with the most filled in part of the stamp, and then the middle one has a little less filled in, and I went with a darker color and stamped right on top of it. And then I dropped my acrylic block. Luckily it didn't stamp on anything important. And the third one is the one on the bottom, and it's more open. It's got more open areas, and you want to use your darkest color for that one. And the thing that I learned about these inks is once I stamped it, it looked one way and one color, and as I let it sit for a few minutes, the dye ink really soaked into the paper, and it totally changed how it looked. It sort of softened up and blended a little bit better, and I really love how these turned out. This was fun to do. I could see how this would be very addicting. So you can see how different they look. One is still wet and one is dry. But yeah, just let them sit for a few minutes. And then I also received the die set that matches the stamp set. I know Altenew has a ton of matching dies that go with their stamps. And I have an old school Cuttlebug. I've had this Cuttlebug since I think I started scrapbooking 10, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, and still works. But yeah, I kind of haven't used it in a long time, so I forgot I forgot which plate went where, so it took me a minute to refresh my memory. But yeah, you just cut it right through there using the die. It's the same exact shape as the flower, and so I used the die to cut out these beautiful roses, and I'm going to incorporate them on a layout somehow. I don't even know what I'm going to do yet. I just know that I wanted to play with the stamps and cut out some beautiful roses. So this paper right here, I had to cut something out of it. I saw it and I said, this is gorgeous. So I'm going to take a little bit of time here and cut out some of these flowers. And I'm going to do some mixing and matching with these flowers that I cut and the flowers that I stamped. And there's also a bunch of leaves on the stamp set, as well as some words. So you could create sentiments and things for cards or titles for your pages. So here's what I got cut out. I also cut out some stems and leaves, and it's just so pretty. I'm going to create something with all of this stuff, and I'm going to use this white background, and I thought I wanted to use a pool picture because it's got a lot of blue, and I felt like since I've got so much pink and green going on with the flowers and the leaves, that my picture would work well because it's going to contrast since it has so much blue in it. So I'm just going to coat my background with some clear gesso. And then I got this stamp from Altenew. It's called Classy Stripes, and I love that it is just very simple, but I love the effect of the stripes. It's a classic stencil that you could use for pretty much anything, and it's going to give you some awesome texture and dimension. And I'm going to use some modeling paste and just get this background going. I love to do mixed media, and I love color and texture and just getting messy on my backgrounds. And so I'm just going to start with this stencil and kind of do a little messy texture background here. And the modeling paste is fun because it's pretty thick, and once it dries, you know, when you touch it, it's going to feel rough and bumpy, and it's just going to pull the shapes right up off the page. Looks really, really cool. And it's going to start to show up really well once I start to add color on top of it. So I pulled out some Distress Oxides from my stash in colors that match all those beautiful flowers and leaves. And I'm going to start to apply it dry with an ink foam blending tool. And I'm just going to dab it on and then smudge the color onto my background. And these Distress Oxides, a little bit goes a long way. You know, it doesn't take a whole lot. I'm going to spritz it with water and then just use my brush to kind of spread the color around and start to blend it. I just want this to look like a really pretty watercolor effect. So when I add my photo and all of those flowers back on there, you're going to be able to see all this beautiful color just sort of peeking out from behind everything. And I'm loving how this is looking already. I love the bright green color in those leaves. So, so bright and beautiful. So I'm doing a couple of different tones of pink to really match the colors in the stamped flowers that I created. And you can see how those the stripes from the stencil and the modeling paste just create some texture. I think it looks really, really pretty. And this is just a roll of paper towels I keep close by. I like to roll it over everything when I want to dab up some water or some liquid and lighten things up a little bit. Now in that Our Family collection, there's also stickers, die cuts, some wood veneer, some enamel dots. It's an entire collection, so there's all kinds of embellishments included, more beautiful flowers, and so I'm going to play around with some of those embellishments later and see what I can mix and match. I decided to add in a little bit of an aqua color, so I just added an aqua colored ink spray, and then I'm going to add a dab of purple because there are hints of purple in some of these flowers, and so I wanted a little bit of that on the background. And I decided to add in a hint of that really bright green as well, since the leaves are really bright green. And I think creating backgrounds like this is so much fun because it's just, you're in control of it. You know, you can come up with your own color scheme to match the papers or embellishments that you're using. I wanted to tone down some of the color, so I just stuck my finger in some white gesso and smudged right on top of it. And then I'm going to come in with some white acrylic paint to add some white splatters. And I've found that that's the best way to add white to your page without it seeping in and kind of fading away. Because a lot of times when you try to use white inks, it just sort of blends in and you can't see it. Now I waited for that to dry and then I added some stitching. I just used white thread and I went straight across some of the lines, and it's hard to see from here, but up close you can really see the texture and how that adds to the background. Now I'm going to start to work on the embellishing, and so many things are so pretty and I want to use everything, but you know, you have to contain your excitement when everything is beautiful. You have to pull back and only use some of it, save some of it for your next layout. But I just wanted to create a fun little cluster on the right side of the picture. If you look at the picture, she's over to the left, so I've got a lot of space on the right side of the picture to where I can overlap things on top of it and it really not affect the picture. But yeah, I'm just going to start to play around and move a lot of the leaves, the flowers, just kind of tuck in things here and there and see what looks good. I don't want it to get too busy, so I want to make sure that it, you know, the picture still stands out, but also those beautiful flowers stand out. So I like how this is looking. I'm going to go ahead and start to glue things down, and I like the mixing and matching of the stamped flowers and the fussy cut flowers. And I did add a couple of things above the photo just to kind of continue the look of this little girl kind of emerging from these beautiful flowers in the pool. That really doesn't make sense, but that's kind of the look that I was going for. And I love that the blue in the photo just sort of makes the photo pop against all that beautiful pink. So here's where I start to play around with some other things. I got to the point where I felt like, oh, it's getting too busy. I don't want to make it too crowded or too distracting. I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive foam behind all of this. I've glued it all together, so now I can move the whole thing around. Another one of my favorite things to do is add thread to my layout, especially when I make a messy background like this. I just think the thread is a fun element of texture. It adds pops of color, and it just kind of contributes to the whole idea of the messy background. It's just kind of whimsical and random, and it's just, I always like to use it as a pop of color and texture, but it's also kind of subtle. Like I like to tuck it underneath things, so it's just kind of peeking out. So I've got some aqua blue over to the right, I think that's aqua blue, and some pink, a little bit of the green, and then I'm going to start to glue the whole thing down. And I really feel like these products just create the layout for you. Everything is so pretty, and it just sort of works, especially when you have flowers like this. You just layer them together and it just looks beautiful. So for my title, I'm going to use some stamps from the flower stamp set right there. That's the Painted Rose stamp set. And like I said, that there were some words and phrases on there, so you can kind of create a sentence or a title. And so I'm going to use the words "You amaze me," and I wanted to keep it small because everything else is so big. My photo is kind of big, the flowers are big, so I really thought, where am I going to put a big title? There really isn't an appropriate place for that. So I'm just going to stick with the stamps, and it's tucked in there nice and it's not hidden, but it's not overbearing. Here I am adding in some enamel dots. Again, that came in the Our Family collection, and I'm using the pink, just kind of scattering it around the flowers, and the photo kind of looks like ink splatters, but it's enamel dots. I wanted to add in that little die cut there, but it was just too much. I do add another little bit of a flower cluster underneath the title there. I just kind of cut a flower straight off, kind of like cut the end of it off, and kind of underline the words "Amaze Me." And then I add in a couple of gold color shine splatters from my stash, and we're going to wrap it up. I added a little bit of journaling at the bottom, but that's the final layout. I love how this turned out. I hope you guys like it. These products are so much fun to play with. Everything is so pretty, and it just all flows together. Making those stamped flowers was so much fun. You could really experiment with lots of color and get so much detail with just different color schemes, because the more you layer them, the more texture and dimension. They look so real. So let me know if you have any questions about any of these products or techniques, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you to Altenew for having me this month.